Okay, so now it's time to add another page to our website, and we're almost ready for that create, update, and delete functionality. But before we do this, we do need a page and a form so we can actually fill out some information and create a new project and then also update that project. So for this, we're going to use something called Django model forms. So this will make more sense once we start building it out, but basically a model form is a way to create a form based on a particular model. So this way we're not going to have to hand code all the form fields. We just create a class, we use something called a model form, and it builds a form for us. So rather than trying to explain it, let's go ahead and build a template first, and then we'll actually create the model form. So the first step in this process is to create the template. We'll go into our app here, inside of templates in the app, and then into the projects folder or whatever you called your app. And let's create a new file. So this template is going to be called project_form. So what we're going to do is actually use this template for two different pages. That's going to be an update page and a create page. We'll just change the functionality depending on what the user's on the page for. So let's go ahead and first extend our main template. So we'll just do extends here and then main.html. So we want to make sure we have the nav bar and we're actually inheriting. And then we need the two block tags. So in this case, we'll just create the block tag up here. So block content. And then we need to end block. So we need to close that out. And then our content will go inside here. So let's just do end block. And then we want to go ahead and actually create some kind of title. So this will just say project form. And underneath here, let's start building out our form. So we can use the form tags here. So this is where model forms actually come in very handy. So instead of actually writing out all of our fields here, what we're going to do is just create that input button, and then the form will be generated automatically for us once we put out a certain tag here. So let's just create the input. We'll set that to text here, or not text, but submit. And that's going to be it for this. So with every single Django form, we do need something called a CSRF token. So this just makes sure that our data wasn't manipulated, that it's safe and clean. So CSRF_token. And we're using a tag here. So it's the curly braces and %sign. And that's it. So we're not going to start outputting more input fields like this. We're just going to leave it as is. And this is where you'll see the power of model forms. So now that we have that, we want to go ahead and go and create a view here. So we want to create a view, and by the way, we can get rid of this now. We're not using this anymore. So just make sure you're not using that anywhere in your views. Let's get rid of that and let's create a new view. So this view is going to be called create project. And by the way, in the form, I added the post method. So we are sending data. We're creating something. So we are using the post method there. So back to our view, we want to pass in request here. Let's go ahead and return the template. So return render. Render takes in the request. We need to tell it what template we're using. So we're going into the projects app, and then we're going into project_form.html. Okay, so we have the view, and what I'm going to do is actually pass in a context dictionary right now because later on we do need to pass in some data. I'm just going to create it and then we'll fill it in later, but let's go ahead and pass that into our render method. So we have the view. And now we need to create a URL path here. So we're going to go through this process quite a bit. This is the three main steps of creating a new route here. We'll just do create -project, and that needs to be a dash, not equals, and then end that with the /. Then we need to let it know what view we're using. So views.create project, and then we want to give it a name. So the name, let's just call it create project, and that's going to be it. I keep doing equals there, so let's just do dash like that. Okay, so we have our URL, we have a view for that, and we have a template, so we're almost ready. So what I'm going to do here is actually go ahead and go into my navigation bar and create a link for this. And this will be modified later on in how we do this, but let's go to our root templates folder, into the nav bar, and let's just create a link here. So inside of the navigation bar, let's just say add project, so we'll just create a link here. Add project like this, and then let's create a actual link here. So we'll just do href, and that's going to use the URL tag. So the two curly braces, %symbols, then we write out URL, and then in quotes, remember if you use double quotes, use single quotes in here, and then if you use single quotes, use double quotes. So they just have to alternate there. So in here, let's just write create project, if you named your URL like that. So we're taking this name right here. This is the dynamic way to do this. Save it, and then let's see our page here. So let's open this up here in our browser. Open up port 8000, and here we go. So if we click add project, here is our project form. So we can create all the fields manually, but what we want to do is use the model form and make this a lot faster. So let's go ahead and go into our app now, and we're going to go into the projects app and create a file called forms.py, because we're going to use a lot of model forms down the road. So this is where all of them will be stored. So in here, we're going to do from Django.forms and then import model form. So we're going to inherit from a model form, and we also need the model. So we're going to do from.models. We are in the same file path, so that's why we do that, and then import project. Okay, so to create a model form, we're going to create a simple class here, and by convention, I like to call my form the name of the class and then form. So for project, we call it project form, and then I keep that consistency down the road. So in here, we're going to inherit from the imported model form. This now makes it a model form. We're going to do class meta, and at a minimum, a model form requires two fields. The first one is the model that we're going to create a form for, and this is going to be project. So we're creating this for the project, and then the next one is going to be fields. Now we can do two things. One is we can create a list here, and we can add in all the fields that we want to allow, and we can also use this right here where we create a string, and then we can do underscore underscore all, and then underscore underscore. So let me try to explain what's going on here. So Django is going to look at this model, the project model, and it's going to create a form based around this model. So it's going to look at all of these attributes. It's going to see the type of field here. So this is a text field, so that means that it's going to generate a bigger text input field. This is a character field, which is going to be a simple input field. This will be a number field. So it's just generating a form based on what we have in this model. So it just does it automatically for us. Now at this point, because I specified all, so let's go ahead and close out these other pages. Because I wrote underscore underscore and then all, it's going to go ahead and generate a field for every available attribute here. So the ID won't be there because that's not an editable field. Created won't be there because that's automatically generated, but we will see all of these inside of that form. So now to actually use this form, we're going to go ahead and import this into our views. So we can go ahead and just do from.forms, and then we'll just import model form. Not model form actually, but project form. So we got the project form now, and to actually use it, we're just going to go ahead and create some kind of variable. I'll call mine form, and we're just going to use the project form, and that's just simply going to instantiate, or we're going to use a class, so we're just going to instantiate it, if I'm using the right terminology there, and we're going to pass in the form into the template as form like that, and we're throwing that into the context dictionary. So now that we have our form, let's see what happens here. So if I go to my template now, if we go to project underscore form, all we need to do is use our variable, and let's just output the form. So I'm going to save that, and then in the template, if I refresh this, looks like we have an error because it's lagging. Let's see what happened here. Did I not turn on my server? Maybe I didn't do that. No, we have an error. So fields, attribute, or exclude attribute are prohibited from the model form. So it's somewhere in here. Fields. Okay, so that needs to be S right there. So fields is the value. Sorry about that. So if I refresh that, that should do it. Let's see if we had any other errors. So let's go ahead and restart our server. Okay, so now we're good. So if I open that up here, now we're going to see a form based around all of those fields. And it looks really bad at this point, but we see all the fields. We can see the vote ratio. We don't want to do those. We just want to have the title, the description, the links, and then we also want to be able to select these tags. So we'll also customize this quite a bit. So for now, I want to show you a few tricks with this model form. So the first thing is we could in the template just go into this form and then do as underscore P. And that's simply going to wrap paragraph tags around each field, and it's going to make it look a little bit cleaner. So we can do that. We can also output each form field individually. So we can do something like form.title, and that's going to output the title field. So we can do this right here. That's going to give us the title. Then we can also output the label for it. So we can do something like this where I'll copy and paste that form.title.label. And this is a little bit redundant here. We're gonna have to go through each field individually and output it like that. We don't wanna do that, but that's just one option. I wanna show you that the ability to do that. We can also do something like this where we can loop through all the fields. So we can actually create a for loop here. So we'll use the 2 tags and we're just gonna do for field in form. And then we can create an end for loop right here. So we can do end for. And we can output each field on each iteration. So in here, we'll just do field. And then we can also output the label. So we can go ahead and do field.label. So what I would recommend you do is look up the Django documentation on model forms, do a Google search for it, and also check out the GitHub repo where you can actually see exactly how it's built. And that's gonna help you quite a bit. So we loop through all the fields and there we go. Now it looks unstyled, but in the future we can wrap divs around it and really actually style this form. So for now, we're just gonna leave it like this. You can output it however you want. In the end, I'm actually gonna loop through the fields like this, but if you want, just use a shortcut and just output form inside of those variables like I did. So that's a model form. We're able to render that, and that is it for now. So we created the form inside of forms.py, we imported model form, imported the model, created the class here. Don't forget class meta. And we also have the template that we rendered the form out in. So inside of here, inside of the form, make sure your method is post and make sure you add in that CSRF token. So go ahead and do that. That way, once we submit it, the data will be cleaned. So in the next video, we're gonna start actually going through this and dealing with CRUD operations. I wanted to get this set up, but in the next one, once we submit this form, because at this point, let's say I go ahead and fill in some information, nothing's gonna happen at this point, it doesn't do anything. So we wanna actually process this and add a project to the database.